How I got connected with Universal is, it's a little bit of a long story, but I'm gonna try to cut it short for you to give you the timeline, right? 2017, I bumped into my guy, Flight School. He's been my number one mentor, my number one guiding figure in this entire time. He's been my producer for all the records that you may have heard. Zeke is what we call him. His producer tag is Flight School. I bump into him and he signs me to his label, which was then called MO3 Records. It's an indie label. We try to, make shit pop locally. And then he starts telling me, hey man, listen, I know these bunch of guys in KL that I've worked with in Malaysia. I think it'll be really cool if we start working with them, because his entire reasoning was, in Malaysia, the hip hop scene is way bigger than in Singapore, right? It's a way bigger country. The hip hop scene has been around for like decades in Malaysia. So he was like, you know what? Let's link up with those guys to see how far we can push this. Because, Singapore is a small country, man. We had to like kind of join forces with somebody else. So we linked up with them, and they were then called Cartel Records. And they were together with Sony Music Malaysia. This was 4 years ago. So we linked up with those guys, and we immediately became one big family. It was called MO3 Cartel Sony, right? So from day one, I released my first single under that structure. It was major label game from day one. So it's been 2 years with the fam, but essentially it's the core team, and everybody's still working together, just like how it was 4 years ago. But here we are, man, with the whole branding of Universal Music, with Alamo out in the US. We have a label out in India, Third Culture India, and everybody's just working together, trying to see how we can make moves happen. And it's just so joyful, man, to have your core team, the people that believed in you from day one, still be around you, still trying to see how they can make shit pop off for you and have your best interest at heart, and all that is just truly a blessing. One of the most memorable moments I've had in the last 4 years would definitely be the time I met MIA. Oh boy, that was a trip. So I put out my first ever remix, right? So this entire journey started off as an experiment for me. I wanted to see if people fuck with this whole bilingual Tamil English raps that I'm doing, right? Because at that time, I felt that there wasn't that many people, not that many Tamil artists out there that were doing bilingual raps like how I'm doing it, the mix of English and Tamil in this very specific way. A lot of the Tamil artists were either predominantly Tamil based in their raps, and Tamil being one of the oldest languages, it is very literature like. So I just wanted to see if people like this whole mixture of Tamil and English that I brought to the table. So what started off as an experiment led to this, right? But the first moment of me trying to test out this experiment was, we made a remix of Gucci Gang. So in 2018, Gucci Gang was like the biggest song in the world, right? Lil Pump's Gucci Gang was playing everywhere. It was Billboard #1 song. And it was wild. Everybody was rapping along to the song, was trending everywhere. And we were like, okay, you know what? Why not we remix this song just to see if people fuck with what we're trying to bring to the table? And we gave it a little spin, and I called it Puri Gang, and I put it up on YouTube. This was before I had my debut single. This was before I got signed to MO3 Records, just trying to see if I can make this shit work. So I put up Puri Gang on YouTube. A week goes by, and I get a DM from this guy. Forgot his name. He had a very unique username. He was like, hey man, checked out your song Puri Gang on YouTube. I loved it. One of my friends wants to speak with you. And he wanted to check if I had the app Telegram downloaded. So I was like, okay, who's your friend? First of all, who's your friend? And second of all, this seems shady as fuck. Like, okay, but anyways, I had nothing to lose. So I was like, hey, what's up, man? Appreciate the love. Yeah, I have Telegram downloaded. Who's your friend? And he's like, oh, my friend is Maya Matangi. She wants to speak to you. She's a fan. I'm like, yeah, this can't be real. This cannot be real. So I go on Telegram and I call the number that he had given me. I start a secret chat and I call the number. And she picks up from London and she's like, hey, young Raja. And she starts talking to me. I'm like, no way, this can't be real. I literally tell her, send me a selfie to prove this is you. And she sends me a selfie with her camera was all fucked up on her phone. I guess she dropped it or whatever, but she sends a selfie for proof. And I'm like, whoa, this can't be real, dude. This was wild. It was the wildest moment ever, dude. And I start talking to her and she starts telling me that she really fucks with the Tamil infusion and really whatever that I was doing at that time. And she was telling me that she was working on the album and she wants me on the album. And then a couple of days go by and she tells me that, hey, Raja, listen, I'll be in the studio with P for the next couple of days. Just be on standby. I might send you a couple of stuff to record and send over. Just a heads up. And I'm like, who's P? He's like, oh, Pharrell. I'm like, what? Pharrell? Dude, I just start going crazy, bro. Like, you got to have in mind, I haven't even put out my debut single yet. Like, I haven't even got my first foot in the door yet. Like, I am fresh as fresh can come. Like, you know what I mean? And to hear all these things, it was just so beyond belief. And she's in the studio with Pharrell, and she sends me a little picture from his bag, and they're in the studio, and I'm like, okay, this is fucking crazy. And we go back and forth, and then couple months go by and she comes to Singapore and she's like, yo, Raja, I'm in Singapore, let's link up. So she's at the hotel and she hits me up. I go down to meet her with her son and with her cousins. They came down for a little family trip and we hung out for a bit, chit-chatted a little bit and took some pictures, and that was the last time I saw her. And then she kind of went into her little album mode and I haven't heard from her ever since. You know, occasionally she checks in, but that was definitely one of the wildest experiences I've had in the last 4 years, man.